Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to Around the Globe with Dr. G. I am here and delighted to be here to speak to our guest, Mrs. Tinuke Akimbolomo. And she is an entrepreneur, a host, and so much more. Welcome, Tinuke. It's good to have you on Around the Globe with Dr. G.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you feeling this morning?
I'm so excited and I'm actually ready for you. So
wow.
Bring it on.
Oh, that's great. Well, then I shall. Let's dive into some of these questions.
Fantastic.
I know that you're a woman of faith. Could you talk to us about that journey? How has it been thus far for you?
So that's an interesting one. Woman of faith. You know, people always think there's a moment when you come to Christ if we're talking about stuff like that. So if we talk about that, that was many years ago. And it happened in secondary school.
Okay.
So I went to secondary school in Nigeria. And you know how you have the boarding house. I wasn't a boarder, but something happened overnight in the boarding house. Don't know what, but something that freaked them all out. So the next morning, they were all born again. And they were trying.
Wow. Can you go back for a second and rewind? Can you start? What exactly happened at this boarding house?
I don't know, because I wasn't a boarder, but I think they saw something or something spiritual happen. And, you know, the people in the boarding house who were already Christians took the opportunity to be like, you know, because they were all scared. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it was. Something to do with witches. I don't know.
But
something really shook them.
Something spiritual happened.
A whole lot of the girls in the boarding house became born again. And of course, their mission was to get the day students born again too. So there was this thing where, you know, and there was this particular girl, she was constantly, you know, when you come to SCM, now SCM was what we call Students Christian Movement or Mission or something, but it was like a fellowship that we had in school. And she was like, are you going to come to SCM? And I was like, no. Anyway, she became a right pain. So one day I said to her, if I come, will you leave me alone? And she was like, yes. So I said, okay, I mean, what's the harm? So off I went to this and I enjoyed it. It was really good. It was like so we did praise and worship and there was a word. And then at the end of it, and this is where I'm going with this. At the end of it, they said, if you're not born again, please stand up. So I stood up because I wasn't. And then they said, repeat after me. And they led us in the sinner's prayer. And then everybody was like, you know. So at the end, I went to the guy, I said, excuse me, you have just born again to me. And I honestly believe that is the reality of a lot of Nigerian, maybe African Christians, where they have become Christians in that same manner. But nothing has changed because, you know, they don't know what they're getting into. But, you know, obviously in the excitement of making people, you know, give their lives to Christ, they don't really explain, or certainly back in the day, they didn't really explain what it was you are doing. So effectively,
maybe even
now, but I don't want to speak to that because I'm not there. But certainly in my time, because when I look at Nigeria and I look at the Christianity and I'm like, why? But I think that most of them were born again. So they never had that mindset change. They never had that. So anyway, to go back to that, I went to the guy because... And I was like, how did you just born again me? And he didn't, you know, he was like, oh, but you know, because I think most of them actually thought that was Christianity. So no criticism to them. They felt that was how you became a Christian. You said the sinner's prayer, which is correct, but there's more to it than that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
More to it.
Absolutely.
So I then did my own research, if you like. I started reading the Bible myself and everything. And so that's when but it was that kind of sparked it, if you like. Because I remember I came out of that, I think like 2 days later. Someone saw me. I said, we're wearing shorts, but I thought you were a Christian. And I mean, that just sent me. I was like, no. Is it not about the heart? And then I do to do my own, you know. But I think that's typical of how a lot of, I mean, I'm generalizing. I know I'm generalizing, but how a lot of people became Christians. And maybe that's why we don't see so much Christianity within Christians.
I do. That's fascinating because the same thing that you mentioned is some of the criticism that some people actually talk about in this huge evangelistic places where for even people like Billy Graham from the United States, bless his soul, he's passed away now, but he used to have thousands and thousands of people at stadiums and he would actually, at the end of the preaching, he will ask the same question: is there anyone here that is not born again that would like to give their life to Christ? And thousands will go forward, and supposedly thinking, I have given my life to Christ. Now, those that did the research many years later found out that more than half of those that said, I have given my life to Christ actually fell away. And so
it's about discipleship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the first step is the
Yeah.
giving your life to Christ.
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
happens beyond that? If nobody is discipling you, you're going to go back to exactly what you know.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that's the challenge. So, but
Absolutely.
you don't know that you're going back because you think I've said the sinner's prayer,
Yeah.
therefore I'm a Christian. So I don't even blame those people because as far as they're concerned, they are as born again as they know how to be.
Yeah,
because nobody
yeah,
has told them that actually. But then there's another, I mean, you know, we could go anywhere with this because
yeah.
culturally, again, it's that thing of you follow the leader, nobody's going to challenge. I mean, when I challenged the guy, he was a bit taken aback, but I knew him, so I was comfortable enough to challenge him. But most people would probably be thinking, well, I'm obviously born again,
Yeah,
you know, without taking it further.
I've said
So,
the sinner's prayer. I
Yeah,
am born
that's it.
again.
That's
and
what
that's
they said
it.
I
And
should
that's
do.
nothing else. But you stated a very important point, which is it's only the beginning.
yes.
Only the beginning. It's like a newborn. Now, I don't know how many newborns can run and jump.
Exactly. Step by step, and
by step.
stage by stage,
Stage
season
by
by
stage.
season. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, wow, wow. Now, again, let's continue on this journey of faith. As you and I know, challenges come. I mean, that's just part of life. Could you tell us about maybe one of your challenges and how you overcame?
So I always find this question a bit like I have many challenges that I just want to talk about, but I feel like challenges, you're talking about challenges in maybe a negative way because I don't necessarily see challenges as negative. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
So go on.
Yeah. Please, talk to us more about that, about how you don't see challenges as necessarily negative. Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't mean I like challenges, and I actually said that I'm not going to say these things out loud anymore because anytime I make a comment like this, God comes to test me with what I said. Like, did she really mean that? But I feel like challenges are an opportunity to grow, to learn something about yourself, to learn something about the situation, to learn something about others. So I don't necessarily I see it as part of the journey. Do you know what I mean? Not so much a challenge. I've had many a challenge, as in, you know, I mean, where do we start? From losing our house to, you know, well, you see, again, what you call a challenge, because I say losing our house, but there are people that are losing children.
That's true.
Do you understand what I mean? So it's like, how
true.
do you even rate what
That's
a
true.
challenge is? And that's not to minimize anything. What is a challenge to someone may not be a challenge to someone else.
true.
But I always struggle with that for that reason, because I don't really, there's no, you know, I wish I had some challenge. I can tell you that, and I fought and I prayed and I prayed. But I can't, I mean, I do all that, but none of them I feel is any more dramatic, because I just feel like that's part of the course, and you that's what's.
Yeah, you know, it's the way that you define it, and I think it's all in the definition.
Yeah.
For example, I know that some people don't see failure as failure. They say, "Oh no, it's only
that's
as you
a
said."
learning curve. Yes.
Absolutely, it's just a learning curve. So it's really in the definition.
In fact, the only thing I think is failure, and I'm stealing this from a friend of mine that said this, but the only thing that I think is failure is when you don't try. The fact that you fail means you try. That's not failure. You know what I mean? But failure is when you don't try. If you sit back and don't try, then you fail.
Or the other one I've heard is that failure is not, well, you don't try, you never get up again. You never.
Yeah, if you fall down,
if you
don't
fall,
get up.
you never get up again.
Yeah.
You just you decide to just stay down there without trying to get up.
Yeah.
And so
that's the same thing now. So you don't try.
It is. It is. You don't try.
You don't try
to get up. Yeah. So we're roundabout. We're saying the same thing. You don't try to get back up. You don't try to get back up.
Yeah.
That is a really, really, I think, an inspirational way to look at challenges, to look at failure, and to almost redefine what it is. You just redefine it for yourself. Hey, I'm just going through a learning curve.
Yes, but don't. I'm just saying this for Jesus. Jesus, I don't need any more challenges. Thank you. Because next thing now, they say, well, it's just a learning curve. Let me throw her this one. No, thank you.
Don't worry. You're good to go.
I'm done.
Now, you are an entrepreneur. You are a host. How has that been like in regards to how has your faith influenced your career choices?
So, how hasn't my faith influenced? Because you see, I think for me, if you're a person of faith, then that's your everything. As in, so I can't have a career choice without my faith. So my faith, everything revolves around my faith, if that makes sense.
Yes,
so
it
it's like,
does.
obviously I'm working in the world, I'm doing things that are worldly, but everything, I think my faith determines everything. Now, that's not to say I'm the best. I always say this to people, that I'm constantly thinking about what would Jesus do. It doesn't mean I would do what he would do, but it's a constant, I'm aware of it. So it's not like, so if I choose not to, I'm deliberately disobeying. It's not that I didn't think about it 9 out of 10 times. So my faith, so it's literally everything. My faith is in the middle of everything. And I think that sometimes that the problem with that is that it can make you look stupid, can make you look like the fool, because it means that, for me anyway, let me speak for myself. For me, it means that I'm not going to necessarily put myself out there. I'm not going to fight for myself, maybe as much as I should. I'm learning now, many years later, that actually fighting for myself doesn't mean that I'm not being, because you see, in my mind, in most things that I do, again, I'm not perfect, because I know with the way it's coming across is like, she's got it all. No, but in my
nobody's got it all.
But in my mind, the way that I'm always like, okay, what if I'm the only Jesus these people see? So in everything that I'm doing, I'm thinking, how am I representing Christ? Do you get what I mean?
I do.
Thinking that means that sometimes I'm going to keep quiet when I really have every right to be loud or to make a fuss, but I'm not going to do that, because you know what I mean? So it does sometimes work. Well, I'm not sure it works against you, because I feel like God is in control, and in the end it will all come around. But it does look sometimes like it's working against you, like you are the, as we say in our mumu, how do you define that? Stupid one.
Pushover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pushover.
Like you're the pushover that people can take advantage of you. And to be fair, they do. But I don't, that's not my behavior is not about them. It's about Jesus. So in the end, my fight, and I always say this is in my marriage as well. I don't fight with my husband, I fight with Jesus. I'm like, why am I fighting with my husband when Jesus is, you know what I mean? So it's the same thing in everything. I'm not going to necessarily, and I'm not sure that it's a good thing, because I do, like I said, I'm learning now that you do need to stand up, you do need to speak up, maybe more so than you have done. You need to fight for yourself a little bit. But at the same time, I'm always like, well, Jesus is going to fight for me. So it's finding the balance.
And you're absolutely right. In the scriptures themselves, especially in the Old Testament particularly, there are times where God has said, now go and fight. Go and fight and take over the land. You go and fight. However, there have been other scriptures that says, you stand back, sit still, and let the Lord fight for you. Absolutely. And so you have to discern, now in this particular situation, am I meant to go and fight? Or is it that I should stay back and allow God to fight for me? And I think that as you journey in this walk of faith, the discernment to know which way to go becomes stronger as we become more intimate. Have you found that?
Yes, but you see, there's also disobedience.
Of course. I like that. There's always disobedience.
But even when there's sometimes when I'm thinking I should, I'm like, I'm not going to, because Jesus will fight for me later. So what I'm saying is, now I'm learning that, you know what, okay, he's not going to stand up and do certain things for you, so you better do it yourself. So in terms of I'm becoming a bit more assertive maybe in that space where before, and there's nothing wrong with assertiveness, but I was always a bit concerned about, if I'm trying to represent Jesus, how do I represent him well? And you know what I mean, that sort of thing. So that has, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes you did, actually, very well too.
I'm like, what did he ask?
I want to switch the topic a little bit to just in general. In general, according to survey statistics, Christianity in the UK, in particular, has been declining over the years. In fact, I read one statistic that says in 2006, the number of people that claim Christianity in the UK was 71%. And by the time that we get to 2023, the number had declined to 46%. So I want to ask you, why do you think that is the case? Why do you think that the Christian faith and those that claim Christianity in the UK has been declining so much. And what the two questions: what can be done to rekindle the fire?
Okay, this is my personal opinion.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course.
Have you met Christians?
I'm sitting down with one.
I honestly feel like we have a lot to answer for. I feel like the Jesus that I read about, the Jesus that I mean, he's kind, he's caring, he's loving, he's exciting, he's a bit on the air. You know, he's somebody I want to hang out with. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sometimes.
I mean, have you met people like that? Are we actually representing him properly? Are we showing him as he is? Do you know what I mean? We're so full of judgment, so full of criticism, so full of all these things that I wouldn't want to be a Christian if I met there's some Christians I meet and I say, you're actually, you're not helping Christianity. And the truth is, again, it comes back to, if we're talking about what I said earlier about being born again and thinking you're a Christian when you're actually not displaying Christianity. Yeah. It's this whole thing of mindset change, fruits of the spirit, you know, these things that should come if you're a Christian. But if you are not if you have been born again, like I said, where are they coming from? And I think I'm generalizing because I don't, but I do think that there's a lot of, even if we're saying in the typical European, the UK church, as opposed to saying the Pentecostal, because you know we tend to think of the Pentecostal church as more black, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. But even in the UK, I find that the way we represent Christ, I'm not sure. You know, we're supposed to be ambassadors for him, and I'm not sure that we're doing a very good job at all. So I think that is one of the reasons, because people are not going to want to come to church or be in Christianity if they're not attracted to the person who is leading the movement, if you like. You know what I mean? So if we're making Jesus look like what he isn't, then why are they going to want to be a part of it? And then if our behavior, we that we're representing him, we that we say we're following him, I mean, why?
Because that's who people see.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't actually, most of the people that we're talking about, you're not talking about people that have actually gone through the scriptures, read about the Lord Jesus, read about how kind he is, how gracious, how loving, how forgiving.
They're just looking at you, saying you're a Christian, and they're thinking, but he's shouting.
They're not looking at the Lord Jesus when he met the people that wanted to stone the adulterous woman, and the Lord Jesus challenged them. They're not looking at that Lord Jesus. They're looking at the critical Pharisee type of Christian, the judgmental Pharisee type of Christian, and they're saying, I don't want to be I won't be anything like that, you know. So they run away.
Yeah, and I think it's very we don't, just the basic kindness. Well, and I have a lot to say.
Keep on, go ahead.
I just feel like and I always say this right, if we can get love right. If we can get love right.
What do you mean by if we can get love right?
As Christians, I believe love is. You know, when I was growing up, my mom I would always say, you know, I don't know if you remember. Well, I don't know because she didn't. Anyway, I don't know if you. But you know, we have this thing called Peanuts. They say like a cartoon thing, and Snoopy. Do you know Snoopy?
I do.
So it was and they always used to have this thing called love is, and they'll say love is getting flowers for you. You know, it was love is, and then there'll be something.
I see. Okay.
And one day, my mom said, she said, I don't know why they put things after, because really love is. And I didn't understand. I was like, I don't know, 10 or something, because I just loved the love is thing. But I didn't understand. But I have learned to understand that what she's saying is love is. You don't need anything else. Love is. That's the totality of, that. And love is. And so for me, I think that love is very much, love is.
Love is. Love is.
So if we can get love right, if we can understand that you're loving, because I think with a lot of us, love is conditional.
Yeah.
Is it that because of the way you are treating us, or the way you love us, that we love you back, or it's because of the things it's conditional. If we can get love right, where we can love, period, with nothing attached, then I think we've sussed it. Now the question is, how do you get love right? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you know, we have the 1 Corinthians 13 that tells you what love is. It's patient, it's kind. So we have guidelines as to what love is, what love looks
actually
like.
Practicing that.
But you see, okay, the way I practice it, or the way I try to practice it, is I see, and you see, like I said, I don't want to say anything because God will now send another. But anyway, like, you see, so I see a drunk man on the street. There's nothing that irks me more than drunkenness, because I feel like, why are you putting yourself in that position, etc. But I see a drunk man on the street and he's approaching me or whatever. I have to now say, this is somebody's son. If I can't see Jesus in this person, I bring it home. This could be my friend's son. This could be my son.
That's right.
The moment I can see that, I can relate to that person. So the answer to your question is seeing Jesus in everyone and seeing it through the eyes of Jesus. But that's easier said than done. It's kind of airy-fairy. The practicality of that is actually, okay, this person that I really want to beat up right now because I feel like, what's wrong with you? Actually, do you know what? This is somebody's son. And I always feel like there's a reason people do things. So if somebody is doing something that I don't think it's like, I want to understand. Because if you're coming from a background where you've been beaten, the way you respond, you're looking through your lens, aren't you?
That's right.
So the lens you're looking through is, until you change that lens to the Jesus lens. There's nothing, we can't blame you now. That's your lens. That's, you know what I mean? So you have to go for your eye test in the Jesus clinic or whatever and change your lenses. But until you do that, you are going to respond based on your experience, based on your upbringing, based on your education, based on your whatever, because that's the subtotal of who we are. And all of those things play into how we're going to respond. So to answer your question, which I've taken the long way around,
no, it's splendid. It's really good.
It's Jesus. It's basically being the hands and feet of Jesus, seen through Jesus' eyes and seeing Jesus in everybody. Because I remind myself every day, and I'm telling you, God makes me remind myself at least 20 times a day, that actually God created him and he's just as valuable as I am. And I know that I'm super valuable. So if I'm thinking like that, it helps me to, just on a basic human level, before I even start thinking of, oh, they're my friend, just on a basic human level, there has to be a level of, I don't know what the word is. I'm saying love, but that's maybe not love, the word. I don't know what the word is.
It is love. It is compassion. It is. It's loving your neighbor as yourself. It is love.
But you see, you say that. How many people do you know that love themselves? Because this is another problem.
That is a huge problem. In fact, I read a book once that said over 80% of people out there, generally speaking, not Christian, not this, just generally speaking, 80% of the people in the world have hatred for themselves. I was shocked. I was shocked. This is the claim of this one book that I read. I can't remember the author that wrote it, but I was shocked. 80% of people out there have hatred for themselves.
I mean, I don't know if I will go, I haven't done any research, but I don't know if I will go as far as hatred, but I know that
certainly
people,
not love.
They haven't reached the level of love, and certainly not in pure love. They might love themselves, like fancy themselves, like I'm all, but not as in love themselves. Because I feel like, again, with love comes acceptance. If you love someone, you love yourself, you accept. It doesn't mean that you condone. It doesn't mean that you're okay with the fact that your mouth is sharp sometimes or whatever. But you accept that, okay, my mouth is sharp, but I'm working on it. But you know what I mean? So, okay, I accept you that, okay, sometimes he's rude, but he's working on it. I encourage you to work. You know what I mean? But I take you as you come. It's the same way Jesus takes us as we come, and then he changes us.
Absolutely.
Because we're being in his presence changes us. So if we are now saying, well, until he stops being rude, I'm not going to be his friend, then how are we showing Jesus here? Do you understand what I mean?
Which is what we typically do.
Yes, but I say that.
Then, sorry.
But I say that with a caveat. I say that with a caveat because sometimes some people, you need to keep your distance and love them from afar.
Of course.
But so if you're in a violent situation, whatever, you don't need to. But in theory, on a general level, we need to take people as they are, accept them as they are, and then use love to change them.
Absolutely.
I always say this thing: kill them with love. That's I always say,
absolutely.
But literally just love them. And sometimes, that killing them with love can kill you inside. The amount of times that I will go. I remember my husband saying to me one time, there's a mutual friend that we have, and but I couldn't let go. And literally, abuse is but she really took advantage. She was really nasty to me. But God didn't release me from that. And my husband kept saying, what is wrong with you? Just cut it off. Because I would come home crying. I would be begging God. And eventually she gave her life to Christ. But I didn't know that's where it was going. That wasn't why I was doing it. I was just trying to be, let me just show Jesus. Let me just show Jesus. But it hurt. It really hurt. And she pushed. I don't know if she was deliberately trying to let me see how much Jesus is inside this. I don't know but she really went for it. And it was her. So I think that sometimes that's, you say kill them with love and everybody thinks, oh yeah, It can hurt.
Yeah, and just to buttress your point, when you spoke about First Corinthians 13, the chapter that
Yeah.
talks about love, love is also long suffering.
Goodness. Thank you. I forgot that one. Yes. I've
Long
suffered
suffering.
long.
Yeah, you've suffered long.
No,
You've
but I can. But you
suffered.
see, boy, I
You
say that, but
suffered
then
long.
look at how Jesus suffers long.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
day we are messing
It's
about. So
long suffering. It hurts.
yeah,
Long suffering hurts. It hurts. It hurts.
yeah.
So absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, you've answered one part of the question, which is awesome.
What was the other
The
part?
other
Sorry.
part of the question has to do with,
What can we do about it?
yeah, how can this, what I call fire or passion, and the fire I'm talking about is and the passion I'm talking about is the true fire, the true passion for Christ. I'm not talking about false Christ or people that act like Christ, but I'm talking about a true passion for the lordship of Christ Himself. How can we rekindle that
So
fire?
the only way we can rekindle that fire, in my opinion, is when we do it individually. All of us that call ourselves Christians need to be on fire. Now, let me give you an example. When I think I was in Form 4, which is I don't know what it is, the year before GCSEs. I don't know what it is in the year 10, I think, or something. When I was in Form 4, there was a girl in my school who, there was something about her. She was just, and I kept saying, oh. And one day I said to her, I really want to be like you when I grow up. And she turned around and she said, it's not me, it's Jesus. Now, I didn't know it was Jesus. I just knew that there was something about this girl that I wanted to be around her. She was friendly. There was just something about her. And she said it was Jesus. Now, till today, we're still friends, me and that girl. Wow. But I remember clearly thinking, okay, this Jesus, I want to know him now. If it's Jesus that's making you like this, then attractive. So I am always like, in my daily thing, I'm like, I don't even care if they don't identify that it's Jesus, but I must leave a mark on everybody that they will go further and investigate. So even if they don't, they will say something. So I feel like it's us. We have to be Jesus. We have to be alive, rekindle, be on fire, think that Jesus is all that and a bag of chips, want to spend time with Jesus. When we are doing that, it rubs off. It's going to show, it's going to, you know what I mean? But until we that are calling ourselves Christians are doing that, no. It's not going to happen because we're always praying for revival. We're always saying that, but can we handle revival? Revival means that all manner of people are going to be coming, and we have to accept them with the love of Christ. Are we ready for that? How many of us can actually I know I'm being controversial. Just bring in one person with a tattoo here into some of our churches and see how we'll react.
Some of our churches will frown at such a person, and some of our churches will frown at different types of people. I remember a time at our church in Phoenix. It was a big church, a big Baptist church, about 4,000 people. There was a funeral for an individual that one of the workers from the church had been with. He'd done some prison ministry. So he was working with people that had been in really tough situations. And what had happened, this particular individual passed away. And so there was a funeral service for him. Listen to this, the pastor that I know very well was preaching and talking about this man's life. All of a sudden, this is in the middle of the sermon, the door, which was when the door opens to this church, you can hear it. So we heard the door open. I mean, everybody else was seated and we hear the creaking of the door. Everybody turned around that, whoa, who's coming so late? And it was a guy that was dressed in almost what I would call prison clothes. And he came gently, just so people don't think he has, in America, people carry guns. I'm saying, we don't know whether this is a crazy man with a gun, he wants to shoot the pastor, he wants to shoot around. So some people were kind of edgy, like, whoa, what's going on here? And the person, he walked to the front and he apologized. He says, I apologize. And the thing he says, I just got out of prison.
Wow.
But this man, Eddie was his name, this man that you're talking about, he was the man that changed my life.
Wow.
Man, you should have seen just the reaction of the people there. He said, I just needed to be here to pay respect to this man. This man, he says, changed my life. And this guy, like I said, he was dressed like, if you would say, wow, surely this guy, you knew that, he'd led a tough life. But coming to church and everybody looking at, who is this? What's going on? But it was a man that had a mighty, mighty testimony. So I know what you're talking about.
So it's up to us. And I think it starts with each of us. And I don't think, we can preach it from the pulpit, we can, but it's individual.
It is.
We need to set the fire. We just need to fall in love with Jesus again, isn't it? Because when you're in love with Jesus, it just overflows.
It overflows.
And if it's overflowing, then people are seeing it and they want some of it.
So and they're catching the fire. They're catching the fire. That's
my answer to
that.
they're
catching the fire. It's been delightful. Last question, though. Many of us have favorite Bible passages, things that we say, oh yeah, I go to this word, I stand on this. What's yours? What word, in the Bible do you stand on that you say, man, this is my favorite, I go to this word?
That's a really hard question for me.
Because I know there's probably a bunch of...
Well, it's not even that. It's because of the way you frame it. When you said, what's your favorite Bible passage? I was ready. I have to. Then when you said that, you say, I go to this word. I don't know that... Well, if I tell you, then maybe you will understand what I mean. So my first one has always been Proverbs 31. And that's basically because when I was
the virtuous woman.
From 10 to 31. So when I first became a Christian and I was looking about how to be, I wanted to be a great Christian. I was looking for women in the Bible and I came across that. So right from the beginning, I was like, this is who I could be. This is who I could be. So she's always been and it got to a point, there was a friend of mine that used to call me virtuous. In fact, she still calls me virtuous because she felt like that I was too much into that. No, I don't know if she thought that was me, but I was too much into that, because it was my thing. But it's funny because a lot of women, apparently I didn't even realize this, a lot of women find it quite intimidating, that Bible chapter. I just was like, oh my gosh, I could do this.
She seems like the perfect woman. She does this, she does that, she does everything perfectly for her children, for her husband, for the community.
Perfectly.
I know, but when you read it seems like she does everything perfectly.
But you see, when I read it, I just thought, this is what I can be with Christ. So I never saw it as a... But I remember there was a Bible study I went to and all of the women were like, well, it's unrealistic. And I was like, oh, and this was many years after I fully imbibed this thing. So I just thought, wow, thank God I found it the way I found it. Because if I'd come to this Bible study, I wouldn't have been keen on this woman at all. You know what I mean? So that's one. And that's why I said it's not really one I go to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand.
And then my second one, of course, is the fruit of the Spirit now. Galatians.
Oh, wow. Galatians 5.
Galatians 5, 22 to 23. So that one again for me, because I'm always like, okay, what do I have? Okay, so maybe I go to that one. I kind of think of those things as things that I want to have. So I guess both of those Bible passages are things that I would like to have, to be, as opposed to things that I stand on. Slightly different.
I understand. Wow. Those are great Bible passages that you talked about, that even I can stand on that.
Indeed.
Tinuke, it has been a delightful time with Around the Globe with Dr. G.
Thank you
so much for taking the time to speak to us today. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.